Welcome to this presentation from the Fortis knowledge base. In this presentation, we're going to look at the relationship between PAYE and joint and several liability when using the Fortis system. We'll specifically look at the impact this has on the potential joint and several liabilities. It's important to highlight that in these examples, we have assumed that the PAYE liability has been calculated correctly. You should be aware that if there are wrong payroll calculations or wrong paid tax-free expenses or the application of wrong tax codings, these can all result in additional liabilities, but these could be managed and controlled when using Fortis. It's also important to recognise that under joint and several liability, the significant liability sits with the payment of the main PAYE amount due, and in many cases small errors in payroll calculations are insignificant and can be easily handled through normal business expenditure and do not pose any threat or risk or significant additional costs severely impacting businesses, cash flows or reserves. Throughout the presentation we use the term of agency. Where this is used, it could be replaced by end client, MSP or whoever the relevant party would be as defined in the legislation. The way that the PAYE system operates is on a weekly basis with the submission of an RTI return and the payment of the worker. This triggers a PAYE liability, although this is not due until the 22nd of the month following. Understanding the cycle is a key aspect of being able to determine any potential liabilities under the new joint and several liability rules. We'll work through an example and use workers who are paid weekly with the reported PAYE liabilities on each week running at £20,000. We can see on this slide that it confirms an RTI has been submitted, resulting in a PAYE liability of £20,000. With Fortis, rather than sending all the money to the umbrella and open the risk of joint and several liability, we break the payment in two. You're notified of the amount that needs to be sent to the umbrella for the payment of the workers and the amount to send to HMRC under the umbrella PAYE reference number. There is no cash flow implications as the total amount is equal to the amount that would traditionally have been sent directly to the umbrella. It's also important to note that the calculations are umbrella and worker specific and will mirror the RTI reported earnings and deductions sent to HMRC. It's also important to note that the umbrella continues to do everything it does today. You are not running a payroll. All these aspects remain as they are today. The only change is splitting the payment into two, one to the umbrella and one to HMRC. Here we look at the real benefit to you in making this additional payment. You can see on the slide that whilst the PAYE is not technically due for settlement, the agency has paid this in full. The result of this payment means that there can be no joint and several liability, as the liability has already been settled. Behind the scenes, the system provides all the reports to demonstrate every aspect of payment, deductions and reported RTI. These match the amounts notified to send to HMRC, so in this example £20,000. We now look at the second pay run on the second week, and once again we can see the same situation where the RTI has been submitted, the PAYE liability of £20,000 has been fully settled by the agency, resulting in no joint and several liability risk. Now we run through this for the whole month, and you can see that each week, because of the reported earnings and submission of the RTI, there's a PAYE liability of £20,000 each week, and as this has been settled directly by the agency, at no point are they holding any risk of joint and several liability. You'll also see in week 5 we've assumed no RTI has been submitted, as week 5 is broken into two parts. This is because the monthly cycle ends on the 5th of the month, and so you can see in week 5 there's only the 4th and 5th of May that would count. We've assumed that this weekly payment would be made in part 2 of that week on or after the 6th of May. Now month 1 is complete, we can see that there's been reported PAYE and NIC liabilities of £80,000. These are fully paid by the agency directly, resulting in no risk of a potential joint and several liability. Now we're going into the second of the monthly cycles, and we can look at week 5, part 2, which is the first week of the second monthly cycle. Once again, we've reported PAYE liabilities of £20,000, and these have been fully settled directly by the agency, removing the joint and several liability risk. In this slide, we roll the payments through for the month 2 cycle. Each week has the reported PAYE liabilities of £20,000, with these settled each week directly by the agency, meaning that at no point in the cycle is there exposure to joint and several liability. So in summary, what we can see is that where the agency takes control of settling the PAYE directly, there is never any risk of joint and several liability. This is not an excuse, as there are no excuses in the legislation. It's a strict liability. It's merely because the liability is fully paid, and therefore there is no shortfall. Also, there are no cash flow implications to the business, as using the traditional approach of sending all the money to the umbrella company for them to then settle the PAYE, versus making 2 payments, one to the umbrella for the amount required to pay the workers, and the second payment directly to HMRC for the resulting PAYE liabilities, costs exactly the same. Taking control of settling any PAYE liabilities directly with HMRC ensures that you have a verified audit trail and removes you from any risk of an umbrella failure and resulting liabilities. It protects you from actions of other parties using that umbrella that could cause the umbrella to fail. You're in full control of your part. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. You'll find other knowledge-based videos explaining other aspects as a result of the changing legislation, so feel free to browse the site. You can reach out to us using the email address on screen, and we're more than happy to organise individual consultations to explain fully how the Fortis system can remove the risk of joint and several liability and put you entirely in control of your supply chain compliance. Thank you.